Welcome back to Sex Talks Podcast with me, your host, Selma Ndasilohenda Iyambo. As always, I'm super excited to be here with you, and I'm beyond grateful that you chose Sex Talks Podcast once again. If you're a first-time listener, welcome to the Sex Talks Podcast family. Here, we are all about creating an informed and educated society of young people who can openly have conversations on sexual health matters while sharing personal experiences and hearing from experts in the field. Today's episode is extra special because we are recording live from the Be Free Youth Campus in Katuchura, thanks to our collaboration with Be Free Studios under the One Economy Foundation. You can find this youth-friendly space at the Multipurpose Youth Center, or you can find it online at Be Free Namibia. Today, we are wrapping up the final episode for Season 1, which comprises of 9 episodes, and today we are recording the 10th episode titled Season Wrap-Up, spilling the tea on listeners' favorites and key takeaways. We are joined by 2 young listeners and 1 adult who have been following our journey since day 1. Before we can continue with our wrap-up session, let's take a look at the episodes that have built up the foundation for us to be here. Our first episode was about sexual conversations in an African household from a female perspective with Mehafo Amunyela. And that is how this podcast came to life. And our 9th episode was about sexual transmitted infections and diseases with Helena Tangi Shigwedha, who is a registered nurse. Joining us in studio today is Ismael Sefanya, a 22-year-old civil engineering student at the Namibia University of Science and Technology, popularly known as NUST, who has a keen interest in community development and the empowerment of young people. He is also an avid podcast listener. Just before this recording, we were having a conversation and he was telling me about how he was listening to podcasts while he was on his way to the studios. Our second guest is Esther Gabriel, and she is 26 years old, and her passion lies in creating empowering and educational content that inspires young girls to pursue their passions and break stereotypes. Esther is a board member and a training facilitator at the Lidar Community Foundation, and she hails from Oshinyadila village and is a third-year media student at the College of the Arts. Her work has improved the participants' skills, confidence, and personal growth through training sessions that she facilitates at the Lidar Community Foundation. Esther enjoys creating short films, photography, video editing, and mentoring others. Our third guest for today is Serley Eises. She is 47 years old and currently serves as the executive director of the Lidar Community Foundation, where Esther serves as a board member. And she is dedicated to advocating for disadvantaged young women and mothers. She hails from Okombahe and has a background in tourism and hospitality management. Serley founded the Lidar Community Foundation in order to uphold women's rights. Her foundation has been supported by both local and international donors in order to provide health and education support for adolescent girls, young women, and young mothers. Serley is a passionate reader and strives to be the change that she wants to see in her community. I've introduced 3 people, and they both have busy lives. However, they've taken time to be listeners of our podcast. And I think I'll start off with Serley. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, thank you, Selma. Nice to see you.
Nice to have you. Esther, how are you doing today?
I'm actually good. How are you, Selma?
I'm doing very well, thank you. Ishmael, how are you today?
I'm actually very awesome. Happy to be in the presence of so many hard and change makers.
Yes, that is right. We are in the midst of so many change makers. And we are going to get started with wrapping up this final season because we have 9 episodes that are out and we are getting to the 10th episode, which is season wrap-up. We are spilling the tea on the listeners' favorites and key takeaways of our previous episodes. And we are going to start off with what was that particular episode that resonated with you the most? And I think I'll start off with Esther. Which of the 9 episodes resonated the most with you?
I think it's sexually transmitted diseases because as a training facilitator, most of my girls really don't care about these diseases. All they think about is, all they are scared of is HIV. And they say the others are curable. But then with me getting all this information, I think I can convince them more. I did convince them, but I'm going to convince them more. because they think because the STIs are curable, then they're gonna be okay. But then I always tell them that at the end of the day, even though they are curable, they can still be deadly. So I think with the information that was spoken by what is her name again?
Tangi.
Yes, Tangi. I think I took out a lot of information from there. So that's my favorite.
Right. Our recent episode is Esther's favorite. Ishmael, which of the 9 episodes is your favorite?
Actually, all the episodes resonate with me, but if I have to be specific, I would say it was the one that has to do with consent with a guest from Kenya.
Mm-hmm.
That was one that really touched me and really informed me on what consent is and how to go about the whole process. And I really loved that. And I think it's something that each and everyone has to actually understand and see how they can like apply it in their lives and stuff like that.
All right. Netflix and chill is not consent. If you haven't listened to any of our episodes, I think this is a perfect opportunity for you to rewind and go back. Osi Shedi, what was your favorite episode out of the 9?
Well, my favorite episode was the information on the Be Free and the Hope Clinic. So for the first time, actually, I heard about the Hope Clinic on the podcast, and that is really the one that stood out for me, and the Be Free one with a lot of information, since we are in the area of bringing services to the young women at the community center. All the information that was provided by you, particularly the one that women can become members of the Be Free. We didn't know about that one, and we are definitely going to get the application forms and have our women registered, because we have really been struggling to get the implants and other contraceptives for the women at the clinics. So I think your podcast has really brought a lot of information to us and about the clinic in Dorado Valley as well. So thank you so much.
We are glad that we are bringing the service closer to the people.
Yes.
And just to also put it out there, it's not only young women that can be members of the Be Free Youth Campus. It's anyone between the age of 13 to 35. You are welcome to come here. But also, this is a perfect opportunity to go back and actually listen to our 4th episode, which covered more information on the Be Free Youth Campus, so you know when to go there, what to take along in order for you to get your membership. And then this leads us into the second question for the day. You guys have mentioned which ones were your favorite or your key takeaways from this episode. But how has this episode actually changed your perspective when it comes to a specific issue that was discussed? And I think I'll start off with you, Ishmael. So in terms of Netflix and chill is not consent, what has it changed in you?
I think it has really made me aware of certain things that you think are like normal. As the guest said in that episode, they invited someone to their place, and the first thought with the other person was that they were gonna have sexual intercourse, and which was not the case for the other person. And it just enlightened me to the fact that actually it's not only the first person in this case was the guest who should know about what consent is, but also the next person, and how we need to educate one another on stuff like that.
Amazing stuff, Ishmael. Esther, apart from now also just taking this information to the young girls, now based on the conversations that you've had in the past with them, what is it that has actually stood out for you to say for yourself, and what was their key takeaways based on the discussions that you have done? Because I see you do facilitation with the Lidar, and you bring quite a lot of young mothers in the building.
Actually, get to understand where a lot of girls are coming from, what they think about certain things, certain topics. And I also understood that information, they don't really understand some of these things, and they need somebody to guide them. They need somebody to motivate them, and they need services also close to them, just like this Be Free. Because there are some things, okay, let me say family planning. Like I have been to all clinics, I've been to every hospital looking for this service, but then they always tell me that it's unavailable or it's out of stock. And now the fact that we have this
the Be Free Youth
Campus, it's more close. I think I can just carry all my girls and move to this side, because Actually, they can even move their track to our center. I'll be very, very grateful.
Okay. Thank you so much for that one. Also, Shirley, you've mentioned something about young women not having access to these services and not being aware of where to get any of this type of services. What has the podcast changed, and in terms of now sharing the information with the young girls and seeing that you have quite a number of them at your facility? What impact has this had on you as an individual and as the executive director of the foundation?
Well, the podcast is actually a game changer, Selma. We are very grateful for the information that we are sharing, because the podcast is not only about the sex talk, it's not only about the SRHR. The podcast is really caring for the communities, particularly the youth in our society. And as a youth leader, what I've realized is actually that we can also partner with the Be Free, because when you listen about the Be Free campus, you are thinking it's something that is only for the young people, but it's also for organizations like ours. And as an executive director of the program, listening to Karina giving information on your podcast, it has opened up to us that we can also apply for partnerships and partner up with the Be Free campus and bring the services closer to the youth in our community. So therefore, we thank you for the podcast and the information that it provides to us. Yes.
We are so excited to hear that the podcast is actually a game changer. I think I'm going to start with you, Osi Shirley, and
Yes.
because you are I'm sorry to say you are the adult in this whole conversation, but we actually want to see, as someone that has seen different generations and have navigated these topics, and the fact that you've been working at the center for quite a while, where you also have intergenerational dialogues with parents. How do you think that things have changed when you're looking at the podcast? What has the podcast done differently, and how was it in your years when it came to accessing information in terms of sexual reproductive health and rights?
Well, even the term sexual reproductive health and rights did not really exist during our time, because, I'm talking out of experience, because I was 16 once and I had a baby. I was still in school. I was very fortunate that I had a supportive family, that I went back to school and completed my high school and went into further studies and so on. But really, back in the day when we were in school, this type of topics, a podcast did not exist. And I think that is actually really how it has changed. Even now, looking back myself with my mom and my grandmother, because I mostly grew up between the two of them, I never had a discussion about sex with my grandmother. I never had a discussion with my mom about sex, basically. And that is how I ended up being pregnant at a very early age. It has changed now with my daughters at home. I'm having this discussion. Even with my sons, I'm having this discussion. And I'm able to freely even share the podcast with my daughter, for example, and she can listen to it and participate in this discussion. At the community center where I'm the lead, this is the day-to-day discussion that we are having with the young women. The ones who have not been pregnant yet can prevent becoming pregnant through these services and the programs that we are able to bring to the community center. So really, so much have changed with the technology, and you coming on board with this brilliant podcast, inviting different experts who know about these topics to share the information with us, and then we can again go back in the communities and share this podcast with the people at our community center. Yes.
All right. Thank you so much,
Yes.
Osi Shirley. I think I'm going to put Esther and Ishmael on the spot. I'm so sorry for doing that, but it's going to happen. Just a bit of a warning. And I'm going to start off with you, Ishmael. How has it been for you? And I know we are quite around the same age group, so I'm not going to ask you how has it been in your years. I'm actually going to ask you, have you ever had this type of conversations with your parents? And looking at the era that we are in, do you mostly rely on technology to access this information, or is it something that you are able to go home and be like, yo, Zali, A and B happened to me? How is it for you?
Okay, so obviously I grew up in a Shiwambo household, and we know how conservative Vambo parents are. So the time I can remember having a conversation, or at least something to that extent, was when I finished my grade 12. And I came from the hostel. My mom sat me down and she was like, I'm so happy you finished your grade 12. And she was like, now you're going to the world, you know? And there are certain things. She didn't really go into detail. She just said there are certain things. You should keep yourself safe. So that's the closest I ever came to having that conversation. Other than that, I've mostly relied on the internet, this podcast especially. It has really educated me on those topics, and yeah, so I didn't really have those conversations at home. It was more a thing of looking on the outside and learning, I guess. So yeah.
Looking on the outside and learning, I guess. Is that something that you're able to relate to? Hey, you are still tuned on to Sex Talks podcast, and we are excited to have our listeners give us their key takeaways.
Get
expert advice and enjoy fun activities. Wow, guess what? The Be Free Youth Campus is here for you, and they are not just another campus. They are your one-stop center for holistic, clinical, mental, and psychological support for young people aged 13 to 35. The campus is open on Monday to Friday from 8 to 5 to all its members. Their services include reproductive health screening and referral, sexual transmitted infection screening and treatment, HIV testing, counseling and treatment, contraceptives, pregnancy tests, antenatal care, PrEP and PEP, pap smears, and more at only $8 per year. The Be Free Youth Campus also has programs such as chess, robotics, self-defense lessons, and so much more. Are you interested in being a member? Visit the campus to pick up an application form, or you can get one via the link in their bios at Be Free Namibia on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. They also have free Wi-Fi at their facilities. So if you are ready to ditch the shame, take charge of your future, and connect with other awesome young people, come down to the Be Free Youth Campus today. They are located on Bodell Street at the Windhoek Multipurpose Youth Complex in Katutura. For more information, visit them online at Be Free Namibia. Your journey to a healthier and happier you starts here at the Be Free Youth Campus.
So for me, I always sit and just think about my life. I would forever thank my mom, because if we didn't actually have these conversations, then I don't know where I would be. So me and my mom are very close, right? So she will talk to me. She will say, Esther, my daughter, come here. This is what the world is. You go out there. Men are men. Condoms are condoms. So me and her would have these conversations. That is why it brings me to this age. I'm 26 and I have no child. So that is all thanks to my mom. She really introduced me to the world out there. She taught me that there's danger out there. Be careful and just enjoy your life. Yes.
Wow. A condom is a condom. How many of us have heard those words from our parents? Have you ever heard that from your parents? Please do make sure to engage with us on our various podcast streaming platforms. You can also be able to give us feedback on social media, that is Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, as well as our website. I'm going to come back to you, Serley. And you have mentioned seeing that you have grew up in a world where such information was conserved, and seeing that now you have a foundation and you also have young kids. How are you doing it differently? Now, I know you have mentioned that you have conversations, but what type of approach do you use to have this conversation with your kids, and what do you advise other parents to do in terms of making sure that they have a conversation with their kids?
Well, it needs to start with us, Selma, and it needs to be a very open and honest discussion, basically, because these things exist, whether we want to accept it or not in our households. Our children are engaging in these activities at a young age, and as parents, we cannot have the same mistakes repeating over and over again. If I had a child at the age of 16, I cannot allow my daughter to go through the same. I cannot allow my son to go through the same. So us as parents, we have a responsibility towards our children to discuss all these topics with our kids openly and honestly with what we went through. So my approach is basically simple. I normally sit my children down and I have an open and an honest discussion. I was 16. I gave birth to you. Now it is time for you to be very careful. You need to use a condom if you are engaged in this type of an activity. You need to go on contraception for the girls. Be honest with yourself. Even if you lie to me, to do not lie to yourself. So that is normally how our conversations go in the house. And we have open relationships and we have open discussions. And I will encourage each and every parent to do so, because more so in this era, back then the HIV and AIDS was even less. More so in this era, HIV and AIDS is highly prevalent in our countries, and we need to protect ourselves and our children from getting harmed.
If you're gonna lie to me, don't lie to yourselves. Wow. I think that is the key highlight of this whole conversation, because it's one thing to lie to other people, but it's another one to actually lie to yourself, because at the end of the day, you will still have to live with those consequences. Esther, I think I'm going to come back to you, because if I'm looking at you right now, it's because I envy you. You come from a place of privilege in terms of being able to sit down with your parents and actually have this conversation. And not many of us can actually relate and be able to say that my mother sat me down and told me a condom is a condom, because damn, yo, you're quite privileged. And I think I'm going to have to wrap up the conversation around your key highlights and takeaways and bring it more to you as an individual. What are you going to do differently? Because I know we're still looking at you from a position of privilege, but is there something that you'd like to see differently in terms of access to information and us being able to have open conversations with our parents?
Yeah, just like Michelle said, I think one needs to be honest. Need to be honest with your parents so that your parents can also be honest with you. If you are being honest with your parents, then your parent is more open to advising you on the situation that you are going through. So at the end of the day, I think parents also should invest in their kids' lives. They should they should take their kids and sit with their kids and discuss all these things that are going around that are affecting the kids. So that at the end of the day, society might not blame them, but take care of them.
All right. Society might not blame them, but take care of them. Ishmael, I think I'm going to come back to you, because most of us are able to relate to your story in terms of not being able to have that open conversations with our parents. And I think that's something that is also evident based on our 2 episodes that spoke about sexual conversations in an African household, both from a female and a male perspective. What are you going to be able to do differently, or what advice do you have in terms of sitting down parents and their kids to actually have an open conversations about such?
At this stage I am right now, I think at some point we have to realize and tell ourselves that if my parents are not going to initiate the conversation, then I might as well start it. Because sometimes what the parents need is that it's for the child to initiate the conversation. And I think from there it kind of breaks down those boundaries and shields around the family. And that allows you to have like a proper conversation with the parent also. I feel like parents will be very receptive if you do initiate the conversation. So yeah.
Amazing stuff. How many of us have actually initiated the conversation with their parents? Have you done it before? What was their response? Maybe this is a perfect opportunity for you to actually try it. Also, don't forget to engage with us and tell us how the feedback was, because this is what we are here for doing. All right. Now that you have had a chance to reflect on the entire season, what topics or themes would you like us to explore more in the future? I think I'll start off with you, Ishmael.
I feel like the topics that have been discussed have really like gone in the crust of the issues that we are facing as society. Mm-hmm. But also there are some issues that we are facing right now. Say for instance, the one that comes to mind is the abortion issue. I'd actually love to hear an episode on that, just educating, hearing both sides, of course, their arguments. And I feel like that would be one of the things I would be looking forward to in the next season.
All right. Esther, what would you want to look forward to in terms of episodes and themes to be covered on the podcast?
I think I would love to hear gender-based violence. I want everybody out there to be educated on where to go, where to find help, and who should they call, and all these things. Yes.
Yes, I mean, the issue of gender-based violence is one that has currently been on the rise. I mean, every day you read the newspapers, you hear the radio, and it's quite sad to see. Shirley, what would you like to hear more from the podcast, and what other things can we be able to focus in terms of themes and educating the young people?
Yeah, no, it's actually fantastic. The podcast is quite a brilliant idea. First of all, Selma, we applaud you on the idea of the podcast, and really the podcast having the holistic approach to, like Ismael said, to the issues that we are facing in our society. What I would like to see more is really also maybe even parents coming on board and just sharing, why they are not basically sharing this information with their children. That would be nice, having somebody from the community, because we work a lot in the community, and some community leaders also coming on board, talking about the issues in the community themselves that young people are facing, and also trying to get the community leaders to understand the problems faced by the young people. GBV, like Esther said, is a very big issue at our community center. A lot of young women go through this. So somehow maybe also having psychologists on board talking about emotional support, psychosocial support, where women can get this type of support after going through this GBV and rejection and all sorts of domestic violence they are facing at homes. Yes.
Amazing stuff. And
Yes.
I was nodding my head and taking a lot of notes while you guys were speaking, because if there's one thing that we're here for, is to ensure that your health and your well-being remains our main priority, and we strive to ensure that we educate young people to know more about sexual reproductive health rights, gender-based violence, and mental health. And I'm glad to hear from you guys. I think I'm going to get to the fun part of this episode, which then speaks about which of the podcast streaming platforms do you use to listen to our podcast, and why do you prefer that platform? I think I'm going to start off with you, Esther.
To be honest, I really don't listen to podcasts. I only listen to them if maybe I get a link. Then yeah, but honestly speaking, I don't listen to them.
Wow, guys, we are one of the podcasts that Esther listens to, but she really listens to other podcasts.
Yes.
What an honor. Also, Shirley, looking at your age and seeing that you're also trying to keep up with technology, which of those platforms do you use to actually listen to the podcast or to our podcast?
Well, most of the podcasts that I receive are shared with me either on my Facebook or on my WhatsApp. So for the Sex Talk podcast, I normally receive a link on my WhatsApp, and I always listen to it because it's a very interesting one, and it's the one that actually really relates to the work that I'm in, and I can't miss an episode on that one. So that one is lovely. I've listened to all of them, from the relationships to the information to the clinics, and it's really been informative. So through this Sex Talk podcast, I've realized that podcast can be a very interesting thing. It's almost like a radio, but it's more live and it's more specific, and I really like it. It relates to me and to my age as well. Yes.
Amazing stuff. Ishmael, which of the platforms do you use to listen to our podcast?
So I use Spotify, and this is just a quick hack for young people out there. So Spotify, usually, when you listen to music and you didn't pay for the premium, you have to pay for it. But when it comes to like podcasts, you can actually offline them for free and actually listen to them for free without any ads. And I've been pestering you about this for a while, and I would really like to see the podcast being virtual. So yeah, I'm looking forward to watching it on YouTube.
That is well noted, sir. I think we are heading towards the end of our podcast session, but I would just like to ask, what is your key message to other young people out there in terms of podcasting, or in terms of also conversations around sexual reproductive health and rights, and seeing that you guys are also in the space? And I think I'll start off with you also, Shirley.
Yes, I will encourage young people to listen to the podcast, particularly to the Sex Talk podcast, simply because it's so holistic in its own approach in teaching young people how to better their circumstances and how to change their lives, basically. And also to listen to other podcasts. And I'm happy that Ismael mentioned it now, that we can go to Spotify. I've also learned something while I'm on the podcast. That is how informative the podcast is. And I'm very happy that this podcast was actually started, that it was initiated, and it can come to us and bring so much information to us.
All
Yes.
right. Esther, then what would be your concluding remarks, and what message do you have for young people out there, seeing that you mostly work with them at the foundation?
First of all, Selma, I love your sex talk. And please, 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 please please move your sex talk to where I stay. Please, we would love to see you there. Interview most of the people there, because we also have young people that really needs to hear this. Those that are not equipped to technology. And my message is we should engage in all these things that are gonna benefit our lives at the end of the day. And I think that's my message.
All right. Ishmael, what message do you have for young people in terms of sexual reproductive health and rights? I think that you're not really someone that is directly involved, but this is something that affects us as young people and somebody that is viewing from the side. What would you give them as a key takeaway from this conversation?
I would say that we as young people should really go out there and make use of the resources that have been made available for us, so that we can at least be a much better generation that's open to having conversations with our kids and changing the current status quo.
All right. We have come to the end of today's episode. Thank you so much for sharing your honest thoughts and experiences. This has been quite an insightful conversation, and we'd like to hear from you too as our listeners. So please do make sure to connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or LinkedIn, or better yet, check out our website at Sex Talks Podcast Namibia. And you can also be able to find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Google Podcast. And with that being said, amigos, adios. It's been amazing being in your company.